Hello, Anna from Wildling. Welcome to Move Your DNA.
Hey, Katy, it's so good to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Um, I've known and worn Wildlings for a very long time. It might even be very close to when you were getting started. Was it your husband who brought shoes over to the Netherlands?
Yes,
That was him. Okay, so
that was
what year was that? I was trying to think back to when that was, but I feel like it was 2016, 15 maybe?
yes. I would have guessed 16. We started in 15 with our crowdfunding campaign in 15. And I also remember, looking at you, what you were doing and talking about you. And then I think yes, it was probably 2016 when he went to the Netherlands to meet you and to bring the shoes over.
That was a lovely event, and thank him again for coming. It was great. So how did you I always like to start with an origin story. I think making things is a lot of work, and so I'm, like, interested to know what your skill set was, what your passion was. How did Wildlings come to be?
Okay. Well, we did something completely different before we started doing Wildling. So it was really by chance that we happened to found Wildling. Basically, our kids grew up barefoot, and that's because Ran, my husband, he's a sport therapist. So when they started walking, he was like really adamant about they need to be barefoot, and this is the best thing, for their development and everything. And I was actually quite worried. I was worried they could get hurt, and they could get injured. But then it was so beautiful to see how naturally they would move, how quickly they also learned, how agile they were. And the kids grew up in a small place in Israel, in a village. And then we moved back to Germany, where I'm from originally. And then we just, the kids needed shoes, so weather was different, and we saw how different they were moving the moment we put like regular footwear on their feet. So basically, I mean, the idea for Wilding, or the motivation, was to make better shoes for our own children. And we had no idea how to make shoes. So it was really just, trial and error, and ordering shoes, cutting them apart, seeing how they are built, like trying to think like, how can we do this better? And really working from that feeling of how is it supposed to feel, right? Like we were always like looking more at like a glove kind of thing than, a real shoe. So I studied history and literature, and I'm a sport therapist, and then we had no real experience in running a business, but we had a lot of passion for this product, and I think that's also what helped us like to get through all the initial difficulties and setbacks, and like trying to get funding and everything that comes with funding on business. But we're very passionate and really looking forward to have that product. And we also, because we didn't know anything about shoes, we didn't know what was not possible, right? So I think that really helped us to really find us and to really have something that really felt different afterwards also.
You mentioned difficulties. How long did it take you to come up with the prototype? And what were the pitfalls along the way? And how different are and I know that Wildlings have evolved just since you actually have been to market. But even before the getting to market stage, how many versions did you go through, and what was insufficient about the version that you let go?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. I think it's the first time somebody has asked me this question so specifically. Um, it took us 1.5 years to come up with the first really working prototype, and that was also the first pair that was immediately, that was starring in our crowdfunding video, and it was the only prototype that we had that we then kind of gave the production order on. So we didn't really test this very well before we went into production. But before that, it like we took different turns, and I really remember like it's like you're trying to narrow something down, but it's like every time you come to take a decision, like do we want to go with this material? Do we want to go this direction? Do we want to go with this kind of construction? Do we want to work with this expert or the other? It really feels like you're closing so many doors, and because things are so far in the future, it's sometimes really scary to do that, because you're like, okay, how many things am I not making possible now because I'm taking this direction? um So basically what we did was we had to find experts that would help us do this because I mean, we can't really draw, we can't really, we had no idea about how to build it last, and like obviously we didn't know how to make a shoe. So we actually did a workshop. We actually learned like how to make a very specific construction just to get a bit more insights into how to actually do this, like how the craft works. But we had to find people that then were able to, help us draw something, like put an idea to paper, so we could actually, have something to show someone, like to say, okay, this is the direction it's supposed to go. And there were several attempts also at finding the right designer, for example, that would, be able to translate the right idea. So we went with a boot first, and then we said, okay, no, actually, a boot doesn't really work because we want this to be as natural as possible. So it actually has to be a lot less shoe than a boot. Then we had this mood board, with all kind of different like design directions to go. But then basically, I mean, what we did was we went to trade fairs and we looked for materials. So I came back home with like these, like swatches of like, okay, could it be like this? Could it be like that? Could we combine these three into, making something else? And everything is under the prerequisite of being cheap, because we didn't have a lot of money to do this product development. So it was always like, okay, we can't really build a mold, like a outsole mold, because they are super expensive. So it was a lot of like trial and error and going back and forth. But I think two very important moments like were part of this development. So one was that we actually looked at the outsole and said, okay, how about we have an outsole only where the foot touches the ground, right? Like, I mean, to just cut out as much material from there as possible. So to actually have an outsole with a gap that would, be able to move with the foot wherever the foot moves. So that was one very important moment. And I think the other was a bit more in the design direction, because it was something like, we had something quite futuristic, like quite modern. And then I thought, no, but this is, something that, in the beginning was only for kids. So it's something that a mother will buy for her children, most probably, because it's usually the mothers that do the footwear purchasing. And I said, okay, that you want something that carries a bit of nostalgia, right? So instead of like going to a very like technical crowd, this should kind of carry this kind of nostalgia of like, okay, how did it feel to be a child, right? So this kind of was the combination then of that kind of modern outsole and the quite, classic upper design.
And then you evolved to adult footwear, or both, that you were expanded beyond. Do you feel that there are significant design differences between your footwear for children and your footwear for adults, or is a foot to foot?
Yeah, we came up with the idea to do this for adults only because during the crowdfunding campaign, we had so many people requesting that we would, go up in sizes and kind of make the shoes for themselves. We basically just scaled the shoe up. I mean, of course, you need to look at proportions. So a kid's foot has quite different proportions. And then, when the feet grow, and then when they are, like a grown person has different proportions. So we kind of looked at that. So obviously we worked on the last, but we didn't change anything else. And in the beginning, it was also quite scary because we were like, okay, this was made for children, and it looks very cute in a 26, but how will it be in a 40, like European 40? So, and how will people respond to it? And will it actually fit? Like, we were so scared sending out the first shoes because we didn't have the chance to test them ourselves. We had, our only test shoe was a size 33, like European 33. That was what fit our eldest daughter. And she was our tester. So she gave the green light, it's like, okay, the prototype is good. We can go ahead. So everything else came later. But yeah, I mean, we are looking into, like by now we're looking into like subtle design changes. Like for kids, it's usually a bit more colorful. Then we have the Velcro straps for kids, because it's easier to take them on, take them off. For adults, it's usually a bit more like even more minimalistic design, even simpler. But yeah, these are just, superficial changes that we make.
Well, one of the things I do love about your adult line is that it's colorful. I find that sometimes adult shoes can be very like, they're brown, they're black, they're white, they're gray, they're neutral, and that's fine. But that color allows you to add a little bit more style, and it feels like a youthful shoe. So I appreciate that you didn't completely eradicate color out of your adults. Do you get a lot of testimonials, feedback from people? And then like, what's some of your favorite feedback that you've
Yeah.
gotten?
I mean, we've really we do this. We still do this for exactly that. For the feedback we get from our community, and we really see this. I mean, yes, they are customers, but we really see it as a community. It's like the big Wildling community and family. So we really do this together also with our community, right? Like the feedback that people give us is something that goes directly back to the product team and into like product development and product improvement. And we are also doing this because we really believe that a good shoe can help you, feel better, to move more freely, to do more, to move more, to feel more. So, and then we often get like testimonials that really, like that bring tears to our eyes. There are mothers that, send us photos and their kid, like her child has 6 toes on each foot. And because like, and it's the first time that a shoe simply fits, despite the fact that it's 6 toes. And so they can, postpone the decision to do an operation to, whenever it will be a better time or maybe never, right? So the kid can just stay the way he was born and doesn't have to change in order to fit shoes that weren't made for him. Or we have the father of a person that is like a colleague in our team. He got so insecure when he got older and in moving that he was really, he just stayed indoors, and he was such an outdoorsy person before. And then she gave him the shoes, and because he could feel the ground more, he started to like be more confident again and to move more and to actually venture outdoors again. So he really like got another 6 months that he was like able to venture outside, that otherwise he would have had to stay inside, like in the last year of his life. So, and then we have people with like visual disabilities, so they don't see so much. And it's again like it's because you feel the ground. It's a different kind of security. It's a different kind of way of movement, and this comes on top, of all the like the general feedback that we get and the general like joy and people seeing, like my child is moving more, or like he's climbing the tree and he's also coming down again. Like more confidence, more feedback from the ground, more feedback from your surroundings, less pain. Like there's a lot of people that, tell me like, okay, I have a job, I have to stand a lot, and it's the first time my knees don't hurt in the evening, like these kind of things that are really, really, driving us onwards and really motivating us to continue with us.
Well, I will say your shoes are delightfully light. They are the materials that you choose are they're just very lightweight. And I feel like because I got my first pair in 2016, I've had different versions. You had mentioned that the sole that was very much, if you had a wet footprint and then you stepped onto wet cement, that that your foot would leave if you had, not a completely high arch or low arch. The cutout of sole material really was just that element of where the foot makes contact to the ground, and there was a space in between. And I live in the Pacific Northwest where it's very wet, and so I had to only wear those shoes during dry times because water would get in the gap. And then you modified that later on where there wasn't that gap and water, or it was sealed differently where water wouldn't come in. And then I've seen in the last few years making a further evolution, I would say, to shoes that are equally light and flexible, but work in colder weather. You've added wool shoes as well as wool inserts. And so what was the impetus to expand in those directions, and where are you going to next?
All right. Yes, I think in the beginning, the main quest was to have a shoe that is as light as possible, as little shoe as possible, as flexible as possible. We did a lot of experimentation with materials. So, for example, for summer, the washi material, like a paper shoe, was exactly what we're looking for. Something that you can also wear barefoot. You don't have to wear socks because it's like antibacterial function. It's super light, it's super breathable, and you hardly feel the shoe. So that was kind of, I think that was the as far as we got in that, lightweight. You hardly feel the shoes. And then obviously there are other needs to wear shoes. So it's cold or it's wet. And then we just started experimenting there also, like first with materials. So, if it's cold, wool is a super, super cool material because it's really insulating, but you don't sweat. So it's always, also looking for natural materials that will give you a specific characteristic or will help you, create a certain function. Um, and then, we started like experimenting with like water and how can we protect the foot from, getting wet. And I think we've made some good progress on there, and we're still getting better. And then also ultimately we looked for a different outsole shape for different functions, right? So we have the shell sole that is really for like wet conditions. And it just like it's also super flexible, and it gives you all the space that you need, and you still feel the ground, but it will protect the foot a bit more, because it's just a higher barrier to keep water out. And then, we're like also looking at that. We're always going from, what is the need of our community? Like, what do they need? And try to make this part of our product portfolio. So we've just recently added a rainboot, for example, which is something that people were also really looking for.
Absolutely. The hardest thing to find.
Right. Yes. And it's something that is really, it is hard to find something like once you're used to, wearing shoes that you don't really feel so much or that don't, constrain like your movement, then it's hard to make compromises, right? So we're trying to look at, we have a sandal, we have, like low-cut shoes. We have shoes that you can, use for sports. We have shoes that you can use to go hiking with and stuff. So we're kind of continuing on that quest to really listen to our community and see what they will need, and then to kind of have the best version of that in, as little shoe as possible. And that's always what we're trying to get at.
Can you tell me more about your rainboot? Because I had not heard about this yet. So is it adults for children, for adults? Is it?
Yes, we start with children and we go up to European 44. I'm not sure what that is in US.
12, or 11. Yes, I know it's bigger than 10. I'm not sure how far.
It's male already, more or less male sizes. And we've just launched them basically, like in February. We are already sold out. So we're kind of waiting for the next. Thank you. Yes, we're waiting for the next shipment, which is actually going to arrive like very soon. So we have them in 3 colors, and they are like, of course, they have a bit more profile underneath, so you won't, slip in mud or something like that. But it's still like it's a very flexible shoe. I think they did a fantastic work in the product team to really get the right shape, so you kind of can slip in easily, but it doesn't, constrict your foot in any way. Like you have the space you need. It doesn't, it's not flabby. Like it doesn't, like you don't like. Like it sits very well, and it's still easy to put on and to take off. So I think they did a fantastic job on this, and I'm quite excited that we were able to finally launch it. We've been working on this for quite a while.
Years? Does it take a long time?
It took years. It actually took years. And this is also it's partially because it's a very new product for us, right? It's a different way of making a rain boot, obviously, from everything that we've learned in production so far. But it's also because then, we always want it to be like perfect, and that can it can draw people mad also. It's my husband, usually, sitting there and saying, it's not done yet. We have to redo this. So yeah, that takes a moment.
Well, how old are your children now?
They are 12, almost 15 and 17. Okay. So yeah, it's a wonderful age. I'm really enjoying this time.
Are they still agile? Are they still in their footwear and moving around quite a bit?
Yes, they are quite sporty. They like to move and they like to do sports. But I think it's very typical, like for like teenage years, like you have to wear something, that fits your style. Right?
Are they like, I'm not going to wear your shoes, mom and dad? Like, do you have any pushback? I mean, I imagine you have some pushback, or I guess I should say this way: do they ever wear your shoes? Or is it sort of never wanting to, or just wanting a little bit of their own style now and then?
Yeah, it's it depends. Like the youngest one still only wears our shoes. The oldest one wears them whenever she like wants to be comfortable. She just spent half a year in a school exchange in Costa Rica, and she had only the shoes with her because she was like, okay, I want to be comfortable. But she also knows how to style, so if it doesn't fit the outfit, like the shoes won't be part of it. And our son, he's very specific about his style. And he told us, like, I know these are the best shoes, I know they're super healthy and it's all very good, but they just ruin my style. So I'm very sorry, but I can't wear them anymore.
I love that. And that's just the way, like, they just know the difference. They have the choice, and they know when they're choosing for how they want to feel and how they want to feel because of how they look, which is great. And for your super stylish child, have they informed the style of your shoes at all? Like, is there any insights to say, oh, no, not that color, or a little bit of this or that?
Yeah, they've quite frequently been part of, choosing colors, or, like we are asking, we're consulting with them, like, do you like this? Do you like that? But also, like, in marketing, like, how about this video? Like, would you do sometimes they also edit and cut videos for us. They're also part of the photo shootings. But our son he's working on his own design now. So this is quite cool.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you. Well, thank you so much for not only doing the work to make a footwear line, which is no easy task, but also for sponsoring the podcast. We really appreciate it. We couldn't get out the movement message without sponsorship. So thanks so much. Thanks for
Yes.
coming on too.
Yes, thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Katy. We're following this a lot, and I think it's fantastic. And I think it's, like, especially also, I'm quite sedentary. I mean, my job is quite sedentary, right? And it's so important to move, and it's so important to be mindful of your body. Like, I think, we're always like, this needs to work, right? But no, like, the whole thing needs to work.
You think the mind, like, if my brain, as long as my brain and my eyes and my fingertips can function, that's all we need. But no, everything between those parts needs to function too, so that you feel okay to come back and do it again.
I totally agree. Yes. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anna.